While Carson Hocevar is getting fined $50,000 and being mandated to attend a sensitivity training course, NASCAR journalist Matt Weaver and spotter for Bubba Wallace, Freddie Kraft, have all but admitted that Mexico City was indeed a crap hole, which is what Carson Hocevar is getting fined and punished for. Just so you know, this is what Hocevar is getting fined and punished for. He made comments on a Twitch stream ahead of the race at Mexico City, and he described it as a crap hole. Obviously, I am paraphrasing. He used more crass language than that, but this is what he said. If the travel was better, if getting here was easier, if you felt safer getting to and from everywhere, if it wasn't such a crap hole, if the track limits were a little bit better enforced, if it was going to be a little bit better of a race, and if it didn't feel so locked down, like you can't leave anywhere, it'd be a great experience. It'd be an absolute great experience. If you take all those out, it's unbelievable. It's great. So obviously, lots of sarcasm in that comment there. And he was fined by his team, Spire Motorsports, $50,000, and then mandated to attend a cultural sensitivity class. And I think that this was done by NASCAR because it says Spire Motorsports has informed NASCAR of these penalties, and NASCAR has confirmed that our team-imposed discipline satisfies the sanctioning body's requirements. And they also, I think, indicated that they consulted with NASCAR elsewhere here in this statement. So they clearly were collaborating with NASCAR. I think this is NASCAR doing this, and they didn't want to actually be the ones to issue the penalty, so they had Spire Motorsports do it to take the heat. That is my speculation on this, because I think NASCAR knows that this is absolutely wrong, and they shouldn't be doing it in the first place, but they clearly have an agenda to push, in my opinion, and that agenda is clearly to protect interests in Mexico City. But the truth is coming out. I mean, we are seeing the truth eke out despite I think what looks to be some kind of organized cover-up of what actually happened in Mexico City and how bad the experience actually was. So during the latest episode of the Door Bumper Clear podcast, host and spotter for Bubba Wallace, Freddie Kraft, shared part of his experience, and they also had NASCAR journalist Matt Weaver. He used to write for Sportsnet. I think he's writing for Sporting News now. They were there in Mexico City, and they shared their experience, and they all but confirm that what Hocevar expected, that the city was a crap hole, is true. And this is what Kraft said during the first opening minutes of the show. He says, one of the biggest things I took away from it was how good we have it here. Because while we talk about how nice the area of Mexico City, I didn't venture out a whole lot. I kind of stayed at the hotel or went across the street to dinner one night. So I didn't really venture out to the city because I know that I can be stupid when I'm in public, and I don't need to add to any problem. Don't need to add any problems to my list. But so that just begs the question, right? Well, why were you staying in your hotel? I have a feeling that's not what happens when you're at other cities in the United States. You're not staying just in the hotel. You are venturing out through the city, likely. And I think that is what he is actually admitting to there. So begs the question, why are you staying in the hotel? What is wrong with venturing out into the city? Are there problems if you venture out into the city? What happens if you venture out into the city too far outside of the hotel area? What happens? They don't actually talk about that. Anyways, he goes on and says, but going to the racetrack, you can get an idea of how some of those areas. I was talking to Tommy Baldwin about this earlier. You tip somebody $20, and they're the most appreciative person on the planet. And then you kind of go back and see maybe where they live. Some of the areas on the way to the racetrack are not so nice, and it makes you really appreciate coming home to what we have here. So clearly noting that when they travel to tracks in the United States, things are a lot better than what it was in Mexico City. So following these comments, Weaver shared his own experience. He says, listen, the thing I would say is where we were near the Sheraton, that was the hospitality. That is the economic center of Mexico City. They wanted to put on a good show for us. They had sweepers out at night. It is the safest part of town. But like you said, when you go to Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez and you have to go from the hotel to get there, there's a lot of sketchiness in between. What could be a synonym for sketchiness? Crap hole? Crap hole, maybe? I think that would work. Anyways, he continued saying, and so listen, I've said that it's a lot like going to Chicago. South Chicago is way different than North Chicago, Grant Park, where we were the last 2 years, where we're going to be in a couple of weeks. And I think it's like any major city, right? There's good and there's bad. But like you said, Freddie, it does make you really appreciate there's a lot of good here in the States. I think this is going to be the argument that a lot of people, especially in the media, are going to be making moving forward, that there are bad areas in cities in the United States as well. But I think that that is actually making the argument for not finding Carson Hocevar and calling it out for what it is, absolutely ridiculous and stupid. Because if he said that about a U.S. city, he would never have been issued this fine whatsoever. And you can't convince me that that would be otherwise. Because he could go out and say Los Angeles is a crap hole and no one would bat an eye and there would be no problems. No problems whatsoever. It's only because he's saying Mexico City is a crap hole is that there is some kind of problem, and that's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that double standard would exist, and it does clearly exist because there's no way he should have even been penalized for these comments whatsoever. Anyways, Weaver then added, look, I think the goal here is don't do stupid stuff, and I think that's true of any city. I didn't go too far. I would say the furthest I ventured out from the hotel may be a mile. Again, they keep that area safe intentionally, and I think knowing that NASCAR was in town, they wanted to put their best foot forward as well. I can't say it's like that all the time, but incredible restaurants, the colors of the city, like it is, very vibrant, very electric, neon, everything you think about Miami. There's a little bit of Miami into Mexico City. Great food, great people, super friendly. The more you tip them, the friendlier they get. So I do think Weaver does make that clear, right? They knew NASCAR was in town, so they made that part the best that they possibly could. But also, they know that these people are being instructed not to go outside of it so they won't see it. It's like going to North Korea and being shown around North Korea, and they don't let you go see the slave camps that they have out in the country, right? I mean, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. But then we get this. Kraft then admitted there was issues. There wasn't all sunshines and rainbows through the weekend. There were some people that had issues, and the people that had issues were probably doing things that we were not instructed to do for the most part, from what I understand. However, he then revealed that a prostitute followed a group of spotters to dinner at one point. He says, one night we went to dinner. I guess this is the one night where he actually left the hotel. He says, we walk outside. There's a group of spotters, and there is, for lack of a better term, a prostitute standing on the corner. And she followed us to dinner, and she was offering her services the whole way, and we had to keep telling her no. And then he says, but that could happen in Vegas. But he says but he says it could happen, which means it hasn't, or he hasn't experienced that yet. That hasn't happened in Vegas, right? He says it hasn't happened. Could happen. He doesn't say it has happened. Could happen. You know what I mean? I was sitting in the Oyster Pub one night having dinner with a bunch of guys, and somebody got shot outside. So it's not like this is completely uncommon. There were some stories of things that went on that weren't ideal. When we got there, people had their bags gone through, and they were taxed on some of the equipment they were bringing in, whether it was a spotter or some of the photographers. That wasn't probably very legit. That stuff didn't make me happy. So he's literally admitting that these government officials were extorting team members as well as photographers, right? That corrupt officials literally taxing these team members and these photographers because they're arriving to cover the NASCAR race. I don't think you see that at races in the United States. I don't think U.S. government officials are doing that. They're not illegitimately skimming the taxes and putting it in their own back pocket, right? I wonder what kind of cities do that. Maybe cities that you would describe as crap holes. Maybe. I felt as long as you were smart and kind of stuck to the guidelines they gave us going into it, you really weren't any different, like you said, being in Chicago or a place like St. Louis. I mean, I don't know if this guy is actually listening to himself, because he literally says, stuck to the guidelines. Are you getting guidelines when you go to Chicago or St. Louis? I don't think you are. And I think that's a huge distinction right there as well, right? Huge distinction that you're literally given guidelines when you're going to Mexico City, not given them when you go to Chicago or St. Louis. I do find that interesting, right? He then goes on, there was a damn shootout outside of a team hotel in St. Louis a couple of years ago. It is what it is, and people were looking for things to nitpick, and there certainly was. There's small things that happened. The truck convoy might have ran into a couple issues on the way down there. You have a truck convoy, dude. There is a truck convoy. There's a truck convoy. Like, he's just gonna blow past it. Like, oh, we had a truck. No, you had a truck convoy. You had a truck convoy. You had armed guards protecting these trucks, and they were literally moved into the city in groups in order to protect them. What does that say? What does that say? But it wasn't nothing that couldn't be handled and nothing that really wouldn't happen in other cities. I don't know of any truck convoys in cities across the United States. Are the haulers in truck convoys going to Bristol? Are there haulers in truck convoys going to Chicago? I haven't seen that. Weaver then added that they were all instructed to change behaviors due to crime in the city. Again, this goes back to the guidelines, right? They're giving these guidelines. They would say that you stick your wallet in your side pocket, not your back pocket. Say no to the panhandlers. But really, if you just keep your wits about you, don't go into the dark alleyways. Make sure you're in well-lit areas at all time. It's just common sense stuff like don't do dumb stuff and dumb stuff won't happen to you. So they're literally all just trying to downplay all of this stuff, which is just ridiculous. Like we are literally lowering our standards so much that we can't even call a spade anymore. You can't even call Mexico City a crap hole because you have to push some kind of PR campaign that NASCAR has instituted to try to make it seem like this was such a glowing experience. Well, these guys weren't the only ones to actually talk about how bad it was, even though I think they were on their P's and Q's. They weren't really trying to go hard. They were riding the fence for the most part. But I do think that they did kind of leave the door open to show that it wasn't what did he say, sunshines and rainbows. There were a lot of issues. And he wasn't the only one. Tab Boyd, he's the spotter for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He says, I'm ready to go home. This is in a deleted post on X. This is over at Bro Bible. He says, I'm ready to go home. Screw this place. People can talk it up all they want. Can't even walk out the front door of the hotel without getting hustled and money snatched in less than 5 minutes. Good area, my ass. And then we have some editorialization here from Bro Bible saying, I cannot say for certain, but it seemed like Tab Boyd was alluding to some kind of shakedown or robbery. He did not provide further details about what happened. However, he said that he travels coast to coast, and it is not like this. He tried to have an open mind, but this has pissed him off. So clearly, things were not lovey-dovey down there in Mexico City, and I think there is now a plethora of evidence that what Carson Hocevar expected was indeed true, that the city was indeed a crap hole, despite what Hocevar is now trying to spin in response to people being rightfully pissed off at Spire and NASCAR. But leave that for another video. But what do you guys make of what Matt Weaver had to say, what Freddie Kraft had to say, what Tab Boyd had to say, and what this experience in Mexico City was really like? Let me know in the comments below.